About 60 years ago, a lot of guys chose not to go to college and they chose to join the blue collar life of getting into the trades. And a lot of them gave up most of their life for little pay. Some of them did really well. They started businesses, they advanced within their trade, became really well known, and you end up with all these really well known brands of engine builders and such and such. In the modern era, the mechanics of old are not the same brains as the new guys we want in this trade. Excuse me, that might offend some people, and I'm not saying that there's a lack of intelligence. I'm saying there's a lack of people in the electrical specialist trade who have a scientific approach type mind. So that's going to be far different than the guy who tears everything apart, looks at it and goes, okay, this part was bad. So the scientific mind thinks, is there a way to test that without pulling it apart? So the testers and the analyzers and the troubleshooters are going to be these kids, younger people, not kids, but younger men who are coming into the trades, who have a great deal of aptitude with electrical. They can look at laptops and remember every single tab that they've pulled down. To try to teach old guys to use a laptop is sometimes quite difficult. To try to teach them electrical, the majority, I'll tell you a good story. I went to a school for Cummins, and I sat down with a guy who was the leader of PG&E's transport division. The guy's name was Mac Fernandez. And he told me that one of the most choice jobs that he had available at the time, and he wasn't trying to scalp me from my job, he was just telling me that right now there's such a high demand, well, back then, and still today, for people who understood electronics and computers and could go from shop to shop and teach the other people because they had unions. And unless you phased out of the union just based on age or retired, they could not hire new blood, meaning that they could not get into these new guys who were really savvy with this technology of computer science and these types of things. So they were trying to have to impress like this technology on the older technician. The problem is when you take an ASVAB to join the military, you have an electrical and a mechanical aptitude as well as administrative and other things too. Well, there are people, I have a really high electrical score when I went in the Marine Corps, but I was sent to where the Marine Corps needed me as a mechanic. So I found out when I got, and I used to think electrical was the most difficult thing ever. So what I'm trying to do is put this idea out there that there's a trade available to a lot of you young analytic minds, and you're not going to be trudging through all of the grease and all of the grime of doing brakes and wheel seals and all these other things. You can move directly into doing this. However, you have to have the answer. Because don't think for a minute that those guys who did all that dirty work are going to let you sit there and stay clean if you can't even figure shit out. So you've got to know how to use a multimeter, like I said, map circuits, and do these things. And I think that there's going to be a huge change. There has to be a huge change in the way that we pay these guys as well. When I went to some of these Cummins classes, they prefaced the class by saying, listen, I've only given this class twice. This is a college course about Hall effect sensors, and I try to stay with me, basically. So the assumption was that a lot of us were going to struggle adapting to this new technology, when in fact a lot of us have really done quite well. But I will say this, without training in electrical, you're going to burn up a lot of things, and you're going to claim to be somebody you're not. Ego is the biggest limiter of achievement, because when you think it's enough, the next guy who wants to be better than you, he's not satisfied. He wants to know more. He wants to do more. He wants to train harder. Marines say the guy who beats you on the battlefield was training harder than you. And that's a fact. The guy who beats you in your business is training harder than you. And it's not just about having lockdown on what you have, but advancing that technology. There may be days where I get into some of these devices that a lot of these younger people are using to troubleshoot like CAN lines and stuff. But to troubleshoot a CAN line on a semi, you don't use a breakout box. There would be no point in doing that. You do a roll call, or you take your protocol adapter and you run it through a series of tests with the protocol adapter software to verify that it does in fact work. And then you move forward and you start checking each individual ECU on its own for communication. And what you'll find on diesels is that, and industrials work, is that there is always a way to either calm or not calm with that module. You don't need to break out some power probe test box that has all the CAN data and all this, making your life more complicated, thinking that this is something that can't be done. it's very simple to find out if an ECU, you unplug it. And if it's in the data link and it's unplugged and it's short in the ground or the processor's fried, that can kill the other ones. A really high failure rate on this specific type of failure for communication or multiplexing issues is for the actuator itself on top of a variable vane, so or VNT, so or VGT geometry, variable geometry turbocharger. So you have this sliding vane that depends that's in the hot side of the turbo, and that will determine how much is being wasted of that exhaust pressure, right? And then how much is acting on the wheel, creating boost. But that processor is a smart device, and if it is in a hot environment and it just all of a sudden blinks out, it'll take out the whole data link. I've seen it 5-10 times at least. So I mean, you don't need to get into gimmicky devices. You need to understand theory. If you want to try to fast track that, this probably isn't the channel for you. If you want to understand everything A to Z, this is the channel for you. But that can't happen overnight, and I have to understand and engage where everybody's at in their level of understanding of these things. So I'm going over ideas about like voltage drops and this and that, and I'd like, the likes I really appreciate. I mean, some of this stuff nobody would ever show you how to do their job, and so I mean, just click like. The other point I have to make here is this: I can teach you the fundamentals, and I plan to. People have asked me about putting together something that's something like paid for. I don't want to do that. I want it to be free. But if you like and subscribe and click some of the links I have on Amazon, I won't ever have to charge you a dime to make any of this available. If, however, just like anyone else in the world, if I possess a great deal of skill in a certain area, if I don't bring that to market, then what have I done for me and my family? So I really want you guys to understand I'm here for you. Click like, subscribe, share, and click those links. And I'm going to lay out a program that anybody coming from even high school could sit and read piece for piece. And after you're done with my training modules, you will have a complete working understanding of approaching circuits, mapping circuits, diagnosing circuits, and you can move into being an electrical specialist. So that's my 2 cents on it, and have a good day, guys.